Canada needs America, but America does not need Canada. And Donald Trump will not bend on the tough tariff talk that's been going on back and forth between him and Doug Ford, who is the premier of Ontario, one of the largest and most populated and richest provinces in the United States of America. Doug Ford has come forward as one of Canada's toughest and staunchest critics of Donald Trump, and also one of the new power players after he tried to announce there would be 50% tariffs on electricity. Well, Donald Trump put a stop to that. And Donald Trump said, look, we can go tit for tat when it comes to tariffs, because again, they need us, we do not need them.
Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all on aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. How good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, you know, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful, but it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago. Many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state. But why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need their cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And there's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry. We have to do this. Yes.
Donald Trump doubling down on his threats to continue to tariff Canada to 25% or even more if they try to retaliate. And he's 100% absolutely correct. We have everything we need here. We just rely on other countries or we purchase from other countries. And as he pointed out, we do subsidize Canada by $200 billion. Donald Trump doubling down on his idea of making them the 51st state. If they want all of our stuff, then great. Let's just make them the 51st state. They can even keep their anthem. You can have states have anthems. I live in Florida. Our anthem is Where the Old Folks Go, or Way Down on the Swanee River. It's one of those, way down upon the Swanee River. It's a weird song for a state to have as their state song, but it's Florida and it's our song and we're keeping it. And Canada can keep theirs as well, according to President Donald Trump. He made all these statements, by the way, while he was meeting with the Secretary General of NATO, who was in town to talk about all kinds of things. And Donald Trump tried to slide in a quick quip about Greenland and wanted support from the Secretary General of NATO to annex Greenland, which he was not getting.
Well, I think it'll happen, and I'm just thinking. I didn't give it much thought before, but I'm sitting with a man that could be very instrumental. You know, Mark, we need that for international security, not just security, international. We have a lot of our favorite players, cruising around the coast, and we have to be careful. And we'll be talking to you. It's a very appropriate, really a very appropriate question.
There's an issue in the high north, so the Arctic. So what you did. So when it comes to Greenland, yes or not joining the US, I would leave that outside for me, this discussion, because I don't want to drag NATO in that. But when it comes to the high north and the Arctic, you are totally right. The Chinese are now using these routes. We know that the Russians are rearming. We know we have a lack of icebreakers. So the fact that the outside Russia, there are 7 Arctic countries working together on this, under U.S. leadership is very important to make sure that that region, that part of the world stays safe. And we know things are changing there, and we have to be there.
It's very interesting when Donald Trump says something like, we need to take over Greenland, or we're going to take over Greenland, or I want Greenland to be part of the United States, or the United States is going to buy Greenland because it's strategically necessary. People say he's a madman. He's a lunatic. He's trying to take over the world. Donald Trump's trying to annex everybody. It's manifest destiny. What's he? He's an imperialist. But all of a sudden, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, rolls in and says it's actually very important. President Donald Trump is 100% right. You've got all these Arctic NATO countries who are feeling threatened by Russia, and they're feeling threatened by China, and they don't have the resources. They don't have the icebreakers. And by the way, those are not like fun quips to use at a party to get to meet somebody. No, icebreakers are big ships that can plow through ice, and China's got them. Russia's got them. Guess who doesn't have them? Anybody else? Donald Trump just ordered 48. And if Greenland agrees to some kind of full-time, long-time partnership with the United States of America, then it's going to be more beneficial for everybody involved, except, of course, China and Russia. And isn't something that's not beneficial for China and Russia beneficial to the rest of the world? Fun fact, the answer is yes. But I digress. Donald Trump continued to talk about tariffs because, again, tariffs are not just economically beneficial. They are part of his long-term strategy for rebuilding America, making America rich again, bringing down your taxes, national security. I mean, there's just so many great reasons to tariff these other countries that, again, have been tariffing us for decades.
Yesterday, General Motors was in. They want to invest $60 billion. The people from Facebook were in yesterday. They're going to invest $60 billion by the end of the year. Other people are talking about numbers. Apple, as you know, a few days ago announced $500 billion investment. They're going to build their plants in the United States, which, as you know, almost all of their plants are in China. Now they're building in the United States. Look, the reason is two things. Number one, the election, November 5th. And the other thing is tariffs. I think probably in that order. But Tim Cook came in and he announced 500 billion, not million. 500 million's a lot when you think about it, right? But I would have been happy with 500 million, but it's $500 billion investment by Apple in the United States. And that's because of the election result, and it's because of the tariffs and the tax incentives too, tariffs and tax incentives.
It's not just tariffs for other countries that are bringing people here to the United States of America. It's also tariffs on other countries that are bringing American companies back to the United States of America. Apple pledging $500 billion to make iPhones here. That is a huge investment. Meta and Facebook saying, hey, we're going to start using American programmers and American computer terminals and American whatever else they use over there in Meta. That's huge. And that investment is important. And of course, much of that is Mark Zuckerberg wanting to suck up to Donald Trump so that he doesn't get hauled up in front of any more committees. We understand the motivation behind all of these. Fear is a great motivator, and Donald Trump uses it and wields it better than probably anyone we've seen in charge of this country in a very long time. But the tariffs are here to stay. Donald Trump is not bending. Donald Trump is not going to break. And yes, as we discussed yesterday, he's not impulsive. He will show flexibility, but for the long term, it's America first. And it's always been America first. And J.D. Vance was parroting this when he sat down with Laura Ingraham from Fox News and said, look, the president has never said anything other than tariffs.
First of all, I think the president's been very clear. He wants to impose tariffs on foreign importers because he wants to bring investment and jobs back to the United States of America. So what I'd say to those business leaders is I think the president has actually been quite clear about what he wants to accomplish: build more in the United States of America, invest more in the United States of America, raise wages for workers in the United States of America, and you don't have to pay these tariffs at all. There is, as the president has said, a recognition that we have to accept, which is that, look, Joe Biden left this economy in a disaster. He ran the highest peacetime deficits we've ever had in this country. He left us with a significant debt crisis. And the president has come in and said, look, we have to accomplish a lot of things simultaneously. We have to bring down inflation, which I think we're making some good progress on. We have to actually ensure critical government services like Social Security and the military function for the American people. And we also have to force businesses to invest more, not overseas, not in Chinese workers, but in American workers.
And that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what Donald Trump's tariff plan is doing. It's forcing American companies to invest in the United States of America, and it's bringing foreign companies also to the United States of America. And Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick parroted this whole thing and said, we're bringing back jobs. So everybody who's out there screaming and yelling about Doge cutting government workforces, everyone out there who's screaming and yelling about Doge and Elon eliminating government jobs, guess what? Donald Trump is creating private sector manufacturing jobs that are bigger, better, probably easier, and more substantial to the growth of the United States of America than any government bureaucratic position.
The starting point is we care about America first. We care about American workers first. And we want to bring back those jobs to America. So we're going to bring back more and more jobs to America. We don't want to buy 60% of our aluminum from Canada. We want to bring it to America. We want the cars to America. We want to make America great first. Then we can worry about Canada. And that's the message. America first, then we worry about Canada, not Canada first.
Yeah, America first, Canada, like ninth. America first, and if America's big and America's bold and America's strong and America's safe and America has the most amazing, most technologically advanced, well-trained, lethal army and armed forces than any other country in the world, then guess what? Canada's going to be safe. If America has more fuel and we're drilling and we have more natural resources that we are refining and using and able to sell to our allies, then guess what? Canada's going to be okay. So will Mexico. If we can get rid of the fentanyl crisis, if we can keep the borders of not just our country, but our neighboring countries secure, then Canada's going to be, they're going to be great, eh? But it's got to be America first. It's always got to be America first. We have to put the oxygen mask on ourselves, begin to breathe normally, and then we can help the kids that are on the flight with us. That's what every airline flight attendant will tell you. Please put the mask on yourself first, and then help any small children who are traveling with you. Canada, Mexico, the EU, these are the small children that are traveling with us. And we need to put the mask on our own faces first. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. And the economic plan, the economy, it's going to grow. It's going to be better. It's going to be, thriving. In fact, the goal that Donald Trump has, as Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, will tell you, is to stabilize the economy long term for everybody and make it more predictable.
What we're trying to do is create economic certainty. We're going to do it with the tax plan. We're going to do it with deregulation. And I also said to the business round, I think it was 135 CEOs yesterday, if you came out with a plan similar to what Doge wants to do with the federal government, all your stocks would go up 15 or 20%. It would be considered a miraculous restructuring, cost savings, and put you on a sustainable course. So I think we're not getting credit for this yet. I think we will.
A sustainable course, economic certainty. That's all we want. We don't want this wild fluctuation. We don't want massive inflation. We don't want recession. We don't want any of these things. Everybody wants to know what they're going to make, what they're going to be taxed, how much they're going to take home, what things are going to cost. And Donald Trump is working toward all of that. The economy is going to be great again, and there are factors being put in place that are allowing that to happen. And J.D. Vance said the exact same thing in his interview yesterday.
Well, look, I think you never can predict the future, but I think the fundamentals of the economy are actually quite strong right now. And we'll see how this unfolds, Laura, but I think that by inducing more businesses to invest in American workers, by reshoring some of those critical supply chains, we are going to make this economy stronger over the long haul, and that is the president's ultimate goal. We have to remember, Laura, people forget 5 years ago, of course, we had the COVID crisis. And aside from the public health element of it, what it should have taught us, Laura, is we can't rely on communist China to make all the critical stuff. You had hospitals that didn't have medical supplies. You had businesses, manufacturing businesses that couldn't get core raw materials because China was shut down. What the president is doing is changing 40 years of a failed bipartisan consensus in Washington, D.C. that has sold out American workers and destroyed the underlying economic strength of the United States of America. We're going to rebuild it. It's going to take a little time, but we are going to do it.
And we're going to balance the budget as well. In fact, Howard Lutnick was asked about balancing the budget. And now that the government shutdown CR talk is kind of calming down, he said, look, we are going to have a balanced budget, and we're going to do it sometime before Donald Trump leaves office.
So when should Americans expect a balanced budget by? What is the goal on that, Howard?
I love that question. Think about it. Our objective is during President Trump's term, over the next 4 years, we are going to try to balance the budget. Now, obviously, the sooner we balance that budget, the more we can all enjoy the possibilities that exist under Donald Trump's presidency. You know, he would like to replace the Internal Revenue Service with the External Revenue Service and let all those countries who just lean on our economy. So sometime in the next 4 years, you're saying
it could take as long as 4 years, but
oh no, I don't want it to take 4 years. Okay. We want it to take 3. We want it to take 3, and obviously aspirationally, I'd really like it to take 2, so that he has the last 2 years to hammer away, get rid of the Internal Revenue Service, and start to replace it with the External Revenue Service.
A balanced budget, but just
we all want to see a balanced budget. She's like, I'm running out of time, Howard. I'm sorry, I got to cut you off. Speaking of the balanced budget and speaking of the continuing resolution, there has been some movement in the Senate. The Congress went through and they passed the CR and they moved it on to the Senate. And there was initially some friction with Chuck Schumer, who ironically now is not for the CRs and is all about shutting down the government. However, he realized that that was not going to fly and that he was going to release the pressure from his caucus to not vote for cloture on this continuing resolution. And it appears that this thing's going to sail through with the full backing of the Democrats in the Senate. Not all of them, but some of them. And Donald Trump was asked about this as well. Donald Trump said, look, the Democrats, they had to fold on this. The Democrats, they weren't going to be able to stand for this. The economy needs to continue. The government needs to continue.
If it shuts down, it's not the Republicans' fault. You know, we passed a bill where we had an incredible Republican vote. We only had one negative vote, a grandstander, one grandstander. There's always a grandstander in the lot. But it was amazing. People were amazed that the Republicans were able to vote in unison like that, so strongly. If there's a shutdown, even the Democrats admit it'll be their fault. And I'm hearing a lot of Democrats are going to vote for it, and I hope they do. This is an extension. But ultimately, we want to vote for one big, beautiful bill where we put the taxes in, we put everything in. We're going to have big tax cuts. We're going to have tremendous incentives for companies coming into our country and employing lots of people. It'll be, I called it, in a rare moment, one big, beautiful bill. That's what I like. And it seems to be that's where they're heading.
It just takes a little bit of time, but Donald Trump is going to get that time, it appears, as this CR goes through, granting him 6 more months to work with the House and the Senate on that one big, beautiful bill. One other thing that happened yesterday was massive protests in Trump Tower, which were disturbing because Trump Tower is still where Donald Trump's family lives. He has an office there. He has a residence there. Melania Trump lives there part-time. Barron Trump lives there. And for some reason, the Secret Service or the security were remiss in keeping hundreds of protesters out of Trump Tower. These are protesters who are protesting Mahmoud Khalil's deportation or the removal of his green card and his arrest. Mahmoud Khalil is, of course, one of the agitators, the main agitator from Columbia University, who was here on a student visa, and his student visa was revoked. Why? Well, because you can't come into our country on a student visa as our guest and start screaming and yelling and inciting violence at one of our most prestigious Ivy League institutions. We're not going to stand for that. We're not going to stand for it. We're not going to bend, as Donald Trump said. So his green card was revoked, and he's now in the process of being removed from the country. And these protesters were not fans. They were not happy about it. So they took to Trump Tower, and they decided to do what they do best, which is, sit and agitate and chant stupid things. Well, Vice President J.D. Vance said, look, this is not going to deter us again. You can do what you can protest all you want. You can break into whatever building, but this is an important thing. We are going to keep America safe, and we are going to do it in a way, in any way possible. And if you are a threat, if you are a terrorist, if you are siding with Hamas, an organization that has vowed to destroy America and Jewish citizens, then we're going to deport you.
A green card holder, even if I might like that green card holder, doesn't have an indefinite right to be in the United States of America, right? American citizens have different rights from people who have green cards, from people who have student visas. And so my attitude on this is this is not fundamentally about free speech. And to me, yes, it's about national security, but it's also more importantly about who do we as an American public decide gets to join our national community. And if the Secretary of State and the President decide this person shouldn't be in America, and they have no legal right to stay here, it's as simple as that.
Do you see more such deportations happening?
I think we'll certainly see some people who get deported on student visas if we determine that it's not in the best interest of the United States to have them in our country. So yeah, I don't know how high that number is going to be, but you're going to see more people.
More people will be deported. More student visas will be revoked. More agitators will be sent, I don't know, to Gaza, to Palestine, wherever that is. Whatever, they're going to be removed from the United States of America, and we need to be a little more careful about who we're giving these student visas from. Look, before I became a citizen, I had a visa, and they told me you can get this visa revoked for any reason, even misdemeanor possession. I don't know why they said that to me, but yeah, it doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. Listen, there's a lot more news that we have to cover, and we will cover it today at noon on Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. That's my second daily podcast at noon Eastern. I go live on Rumble and YouTube and X and a whole bunch of other fantastical platforms, or you can search on iTunes or Spotify and listen anytime you want. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.